Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Brad Stewart, and joined with me is Dr. Don Hyman. Don, as probably all of you know, is a rock star audiologist that kind of does everything when it comes to private practices and supporting private practice owners. And today we are talking about Aural Rehab because, as you probably know, Don started a program called the Hearing Wellness Journey. And so today we're going to talk about the importance of aural rehab, how we effectively create an aural rehab program inside of our audiology practices, and why it matters in the patient experience. Don, just to get started, do you mind just talking a little bit about why aural rehab? Like, why is this something that's important to you, and so important that you even created a program around it?
Yeah, I think mainly because I, like a lot of people, went to school. I was in undergrad, and while I was volunteering at Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh, I decided I wanted to be a pediatric audiologist, and I'm going to do cochlear implants. I mean, how many times have you heard that story? So I was, at the Children's Hospital helping out with things. And as time went on, and I was working as a pediatric audiologist, and I was working with peds, life changed and I burned out of where I was working. The commute was killer. And then I started a private practice. Then I succumbed to the fact I had to work with adults, and I realized they're just big kids, right? But I was still able to see children, and I was doing auditory processing, testing and evals. And then another change, we moved to Chicago. I started a pediatric cochlear implant there, working with the little kids, and just time and time again, knowing if a child has a problem with their hearing, we dive deep into making this an urgent, that they get as many services as possible, that we make them immediately aware of phonemes and between different sounds or syllables, and multisyllabic versus monosyllabic words, and playing games and all that stuff. And when I went back into private practice again, working with adults, it hit me that I didn't have a consistent way of ensuring that these adults who, unfortunately, something changed with their ears, I wasn't providing the same level or consistent level of education for them that I would have required for the kids. And I like the analogy of saying, an adult suddenly wakes up one morning and they're being told they have to move to France, but they don't speak French. And we're like, don't worry about it. Just watch TV when you get there. I'm sure you'll figure it out. That's what we've been doing for adults. And I was finding that I had inconsistent results with my patients of who were successful and who were not. Now, obviously, there's a lot of variables. How long did someone wait before they did something? Or was it a traumatic experience where there was an autoimmune disorder, their hearing dropped in one side and went completely away the other side, that was their bad ear is now their good ear, and it's not great. And trying to help people navigate, I was running out of time. I was rambling sometimes, like I might be right now. And I was finding that I needed a system that I could use in my practice. And I also didn't want to repeat the same thing over and over and over again, because I know how to change batteries and I know how to deliver it correctly. But what if my other providers or students aren't doing it correctly? And what if, because they say, what if we don't know what they remembered? So they say that when we teach someone something, they might only retain 20%. What's the 80% that this particular person does not recall or remember? When it was something really important I was telling them, was their mind already thinking about something else and they're not paying attention? So I thought, what if I record everything? What if I put it out there and I structure a timeline that they go through everything I want them to know to be successful? And what if they could review it at any time when suddenly they're like, I remember she said something about church, but I wasn't paying attention. Now I want to go watch that video because I'm going to a wedding this weekend. So I created a thing, and it was self-serving for our practice. And we started to have great outcomes from that, because, and it put a load off of me because, as you know, reimbursement is decreasing. My time is very valuable. People are starting to be concerned about how much they're going to pay for services. What if I could just sign them up for a program and just keep checking in on them of where they are in their progress in retraining their brain, educating them about what happened to their ears, and empowering them with easy and difficult listening activities. That's my story.
Awesome. That makes a ton of sense to me. And I'm a big fan of systems, so I definitely approve of that. Why do you think, or why would you say there's such a disconnect between the way that we approach hearing loss treatment for kids versus adults? Why is there such a drop off in oral rehabilitation with adults, do you think?
I don't know. Like, I kind of feel like we assume that we forget what we learned in undergraduate school. We forgot that we had to learn some parts about how the ear works, or how difficult it might be when you go to a restaurant, and what remediation strategies should be used. We assume that everyone knows because we forgot what we didn't know. So that assumption that everyone knows what to do when they're in a restaurant or watching TV, that assumption, I think, makes it easier on us to say, oh, I'm sure you got this, or I'm just going to give you a spiel for 15 minutes, but I don't think it's enough.
Yeah. I wonder if sometimes we lose, even as audiologists, and we know better, if we lose sight that the hearing aid isn't the entire solution.
Absolutely. Yeah, prepping them. I know that I've found that with doctors that I work with, let's say I wear contacts, I wear glasses, I wear cheaters, multiple problems, right? So when I go in, I screw up, is it the retina or the cornea I'm talking about? And I know, if I call him George, but his name's Dr. Nagy, I feel like we're there. But if I'm like, George, can you explain this to me again? He will take the time to explain it to me. And when I feel like I am valued and I'm heard and that extra time was taken, that I am more likely to keep returning to that person. And I feel like that if someone has something a little extra high tech, something that's maybe online or something that they could do on their own at home that they could review, feels like it's a little extra something. I know that box stores and the my competitors that are chains don't have something like this. So I know, as an independent provider, whether it's me or it's someone else that did it, or if it's giving them something more to show that their practice is more valuable. And I keep saying to everyone, please, and I'm telling you right now, if you're watching, design your own. Do your best to try to find a system that works for you. And it's not just about like like some of these games, which are really good. There is a lot out there now where they can hear the sound, and then they have a choice of clicking on or a T, let's say. That's great, but the actual counseling of teaching them about why this is important, about realistic expectations, short little 3 to 5 minute videos of good communication strategies for their family to watch, or what happens if you don't wear your hearing aids. What are the detrimental effects of not even following through and returning these hearing aids? Because they start these videos straight away the first day, and they come back in like a week or so, and they're already being empowered with, okay, this is really important. We have like a 2% return rate, and it's because of a couple surgeries. People didn't need the hearing aids and they were moving forward, right? So I don't about the widget. It's about establishing education for our patients so that true oral rehab is helping people to do their best with what they have. So if you remember the textbooks from when you were in grad school, when I was in grad school, the oral rehab books were like black and white photos, old pocket talkers, just terrible. I hated that class. I thought, this is so boring. Oh my gosh. And so the way that it was presented wasn't great. And I've now found that I think the aural rehab, however you want to say it, is the most important key when it comes to the psychology of all of this, of empowering them to feel good about doing something about their ears, but also giving them just easy tips, listening to your music the first week, and also, trying to listen to just the news for 15 minutes on a radio is a listening exercise that's so easy, but if you don't structure it, you're not going to benefit as much or have as great outcomes as you maybe envisioned. So I tell the patients, I'm like, look, you're starting here, day one, I'm doing all of the testing, and I want you up here because you're telling me that you would like to go from here to here. I'm telling you your homework. So a lot of people say, well, how do you get people to do this? I know that, in the past, all these desks from a different company, and check in with people and ask them, so did you do your homework? And they're like, no, I make sure that they know I did speech and noise testing. I did an HHIA. I did, the sentences and noise and things like that. And I'm telling them, I know it's hard today, but I want to see you improve. So you're going to have homework, and I'm going to be testing you again in the end. When they hear that part of, oh my gosh, I'm like, in 6 weeks, you're going to be back in that sound booth, and you're going to fill out this questionnaire again, and we're going to see where you're at. They are following through on the homework. It's easy to just watch videos. It's easy to start to incorporate this, where it's just once a week, maybe watch, 15 to 20 minutes worth of videos in practicing this. And then it starts eliciting questions. Like week 3 is all about strategy. And during those videos, there's one on amplified telephones. How many of us kind of stick a little paper into their folder that said, by the way, you qualify for captioned phones? How much time do we have to completely explain that? This way, when they come back in, they're like, can you tell me about that phone? Can you tell me about remote mics? Do I have that? Is it the Start Live Listen? We might say, well, it's Start Live Listen, or I can order you that part. Or, where are they going to sit in church? Where are they going to sit in restaurants? Week 4 and 5 are easy then difficult listening situations. This is where it's kind of like they do it on their own. We start out with just identification of sounds. I have the longest video in the entire thing, there's over 50 videos, but the longest one is lip reading. And it's also giving them phonemic awareness, listening to the sounds. I give examples. I have the card, they have the letters, they have closed captioning, and we're trying to allow them to, in quiet, hear everything with these new devices. It could be an implant, it could be brand new hearing aids, or it's their first pair of hearing aids ever, but establishing a foundation. And then moving on to phonemic synthesis. I'm sounding out the words, and can they decode that and put it together? By the 5th week, they're listening in noise, rapid speech, and I have some students that were from around the world, and they're using their accents. Akmarel's like, oh, I can throw in a Russian accent really hard. I'm like, go for it, But it's something that's a starting point. And a lot of people, they're going to do great with it. Others, they're like, that was really hard. I think I need more. And that's when they can get into one-on-one stuff where they can come into the office and use specifics for them. But it just freed you up of a lot of time. And there's less likelihood that they're going to return hearing aids. At least that's what we found in our office. And it's giving you a reason to test them with outcome measures and show improvements. Again, reducing that question of, was this a good idea to spend this money? And it's usually, this was a great idea. This was a great investment.
I think that one of the questions that I always had around aural rehab programs you addressed, which is that the compliance tends to be pretty poor. And what I really like about what you just said is kind of the accountability that you've built into the clinical experience. So you've made it like an online, offline kind of hybrid aural rehab experience where they know that in X window of time, they're going to be coming back and redoing those tests. And we're going to see what type of result the work you've been doing at home has had, as opposed to just sending them home with the tests and like, oh yeah, I'll be able to look on the computer and see what you've been doing. I think that just the psychological impact of having you as their accountability partner, essentially, like you're their hearing coach, I think that that's pretty brilliant. Can you talk about about the framework, the structure of the program, which you did kind of generally there, but can you just kind
Yeah,
of outline like what do the
absolutely.
steps look like?
So there's 5 modules. The first module is looking at creating a paradigm shift if they are in denial of their hearing loss, and also empowering them with knowledge, as well as their family members with strategies right away of just being aware that this is still a broken system. Here's some things you should do. I am, as a professional, telling their family, it's not okay if you stick your head into the cabinet and ask, do we have pickles, or should we store something? And the person is over in the dining room reading something. I even tell them it's not okay if you ask them, what, aren't you wearing your hearing aids? Like, we would never do that if someone has a documented vision problem and yell at them about why they can't read that recipe. You would help them. So module 1, I think, is the foundation for sure. Module 2 is clean and checks, trying to reduce. I was telling my office staff, and I was like, wouldn't it be great if someone called and you're like, I think you should probably try to change your wax guard. And they're like, what is that? And you're like, go to module 2, video 2, and they could just do it. And they're like, that would be amazing. And I'm like, well, we now have tags in our system that has who is signed up for the hearing wellness journey. And they can just tell them, go to this and you can review it. And they're like, that's fantastic, you know? So earwax is a thing, and giving them an overview of there are different things over the counter that you could try using, but if that doesn't work or that prep work didn't work, definitely come in to have wax removed. At the end of every single video, by the way, I do say, if you're having problems with this or you have questions, ask your audiologist. And right next to every single video, there is a provider finder. My purpose in this is, if someone were to find this course online and they have an over-the-counter device, I want them to know what happens in an audiology office. There's actually one that's, here's what happens in an audiologist practice with a fitting of a hearing aid. And we talk about real ear measurement and all of that. I want them to know this is a starting point, but the audiologist is a very fundamental, good part of the process of rehabbing your ear and your brain. So this is not about me. And I talk to them as if teaching them about aural rehab, but I'm putting them back to your clinic to ask questions and or find someone if they never had a clinic. And we have providers on there from all over the country. So module 3 is the strategies. What happens when it's perfect? Or I always say, of course, everything sounds great. When you get home into the real world, we're going to be frustrated. I'm not ignoring that. I'm just trying to gamify it. So I'm like, okay, what am I going to do in this situation? And there's different topics that we go through. The last video I ever did, I didn't think would have to stay for more than 2 weeks. And it was masks. So I was working on this program. I started writing out everything, scripting it a year before COVID. And I finished the final 24 videos 4 days before our state shut us down. I put everything away. I'm like, okay, here we go. And then suddenly, we were told we would be shut down for 2 weeks. And I'm like, I guess I should do a video on masks. I don't know. I ended up with 2.5 months to build the website. So I built it myself. And it is evolving. We still haven't uploaded it in, we have the Russian and we have Chinese translations already for most of the videos. We need to add Spanish and French and German possibly. But just the foundation alone, I think, is good. The framework then goes into the easy and the difficult listening exercises. At the top of every module, so we have a paper guide that we give the patients and tells them, this is your homework for this week, and it tells them what videos to watch. At at the beginning of each of those weeks and at the top within the structure of the online program, it's giving them the easy exercises, things they should be working on that week. You know, listening to an audiobook with the written and the auditory, possibly adding in podcasts, never being in quiet. Or how many people in the clinic have said they haven't been to a restaurant in 2 years because of the COVID shutdown, or now that they're back, they can't hear in background noise anymore. I'm encouraging them to create a noisy atmosphere in their own home, at least a half hour a day. And I'm like, look, I'm like physical therapy. Here's the thing. Physical therapists should not have a job. The surgeon should be able to give you the exercises and you do it at home. But we all know most people don't do that, or they're complacent, or they don't stretch their knee because it hurts, and they don't do the things that they need to. And their therapist is saying, if you want to get to that, you got to do the work. So I am coaching them along of, let's keep going. With any program, it could be weight loss. It could be rehabbing a knee. It could be becoming a triathlete. If you don't have someone giving you positive reinforcement as you go, and someone that says, I'm going to check up on you and give them accountability, you probably won't have the success stories that you had hoped. So you are their coach. This is a tool that could be used online, but not everyone has online capabilities. So this isn't for everyone, but it can be watched on a tablet or a cell phone or on a computer. The framework can be used as needed. When I built it, I did not allow the system to check off checks whenever they've done a video. And here's why. I want them to feel like, well, I already did that, so I'm never going to go back there. I want them to return whenever they get new products, or whenever they're suddenly going to be in a situation that they didn't plan on being in. I want them to feel comfortable with constantly reviewing the resources and just using it as a resource.
I think that that's a really powerful reframe actually for us as clinicians, like thinking about yourself as their hearing coach as opposed to their doctor. I just think that the mindset there is impactful, because you're right. Like, as the coach, you're not doing the work for them, but you are holding them accountable. You're reminding them why they started this process in the first place. I love that.
And we have the framework of what we know will work.
Right.
We're going to get them there faster because we have a process that does work, rather than them randomly looking up stuff, buying a book, seeing a video here or there, talking to friends. It crushes me when someone says, oh my gosh, had I known that 3 years ago.
Yeah, that's 3 years of their life. Yeah.
That's 3 years of their life that they had to figure out on their own because nobody told them, we're going to put this together. Let's do it.
Okay, so I'm a practice owner. I believe this is important, but I don't have the bandwidth to create my own program. How do I use a program like yours or your program inside of my clinic? What does that look like?
So people have done it in different ways. I have a capability of just creating your own kind of sign up for your clinic. It actually says your clinic name, you sign up the person, and they're automatically put into the system, and they can start using it right away. And then we would just invoice at the end. Some people are using the module 1 during that break time between, we just tested their hearing, we're going to go get demo hearing aids to set up with them. Let's get them started in the office. There's closed captioning on every single video. So allowing them to be educated straight away, and they start to get used to my rate of speech and how and then they start, moving forward. Some are giving people options to use it, or I heard that there was one setup where they're like, well, if someone is red in cognitive view, then we would offer it. And I'm like, if someone's red in cognitive view, they probably wouldn't be able to handle it. That's crazy. I think it's more so for those that are pretty active, are those that are going through the whole program, that have done the testing with us. We did a small study last summer with 16 subjects, and those that completed the process were the younger, mostly men that got hearing aids the first time, there were significant improvements in their speech and noise abilities. Their HHIA scores dropped significantly. And I have graphs on that, but they were mainly someone who wouldn't identify themselves as hard of hearing. They just happen to wear hearing aids. Does that make sense? Like, I wear contacts and glasses, but I don't identify myself as vision impaired. This is something that it's the do-it-yourself. There will be people that need more hand-holding. This does not take away from that. If anything, they might find that was hard. Can you help me with more? That's when you start talking about remote mics. That's when you can do one-on-one auditory training.
Yeah. Well, and the great thing there is you get the opportunity to be more engaged with that patient and to build that relationship. Yeah. Cool. Well, I think that this is such an important topic that is, unfortunately, as life gets busy as private practices, I think this one is one of the early ones to fall by the wayside. And so I love that you have created this program to make it easier to integrate such an important clinical process into a practice. And so how do people, if they're interested in the program, what is the next action step for them to get more information from you?
So what we'll do is we'll put my contact information down below, and they can email me and we can have a Zoom call and set up their clinic. Individuals can purchase it online straight away, and anyone can use it. This can be used and is used supplemental to Dusty Jesson's email system that she has and her books. So this doesn't take away from that. It's a different way of presenting the content, and it just kind of reinforces you as the expert.
Yeah, I think if you did both of those programs, talk about patient experience, you'd be like top 1%. So
her emails are so good, and
awesome.
The books, yeah. So it's all good.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much. Super informative and always good to talk. So thanks, Dawn, and thank you everybody for watching.